60 minutes to 0 hour. It's like any other night in the control room of Reactor number 4 at the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant. The room buzzes with life as machines hum and lights flicker. Dials and gauges monitor the pressure and the temperature inside the reactor. 25-year-old Leonid Toptunov is the senior control engineer tonight. He's only been in the role for 2 months, and now he's overseeing a safety test, one delayed from the previous day. The goal is to see if the reactor's turbines can keep the water pumps running in the event of a critical failure. Carefully, he begins to lower the reactor's power. Toptunov's eyes are fixed on the reactor output. Beside him stands Alexander Akimov, the shift's foreman, and Anatoly Dyatlov, the plant's deputy chief engineer. The men move through their normal procedures. Everything feels routine. Everything feels safe. The workers inside belong to a special group of experts providing power to a nation. But that feeling won't last. 55 minutes to 0 hour. The mood in the room changes. The power is dropping too fast. The reactor is not acting the way the book said it should. Inside the core, xenon gas is building up, and it acts like a sponge, soaking up the tiny particles that keep the nuclear fire going. Too much xenon and the reactor starts to choke. Power collapses. Akimov tells Dyatlov that they should stop and wait for the gas to clear. Dyatlov ignores the warning. He snaps at Toptunov, ordering him to prepare for the test. Under the hard glare of his superior, Toptunov gives in. It's a move that will change history. 52 minutes to 0 hour. The shrill of alarms fills the control room. The power has dropped below the safety limit. Toptunov works the switches as fast as he can. There is only one way to bring the reactor back to a stable level. They have to pull the control rods out. It is the only way to force the reaction back up, but it's also extremely dangerous. 50 minutes to 0 hour. Toptunov removes the control rods. The screens show the power is slowly starting to climb back up, but it's still far below what the test plan calls for. Dyatlov says it's enough. 1 mile away in the town of Pripyat, 49,360 people are soundly asleep. They have no idea about the devastation coming their way. 45 minutes to 0 hour. As Toptunov attempts to switch the reactor from local to automatic control, the power doesn't just drop, it stops. The digital displays flicker. The numbers tumble. The reactor is almost flatlined. The center of the reactor is clogged with xenon. Normally, the reactor would be shut down for 24 hours to allow the xenon to decay. But tonight, Dyatlov cannot wait. A successful test tonight could see him promoted to chief engineer, and with it a salary increase. He has no idea that the heat is building at the bottom of the reactor faster than the sensors can even track. 30 minutes to 0 hour. Inside the reactor vessel, beneath a 1,000-ton steel lid, the uranium fuel rods are now exposed. Water levels swing wildly. The rods grow hotter and hotter, starting to glow red as the cooling water struggles to keep up. The concrete floors begin to vibrate. Back in the control room, Dyatlov is satisfied. They have managed to crawl the power back up. But what he doesn't realize is that Reactor 4 is now a bomb with a ticking fuse. 22 minutes to 0 hour. It's 1:01 a.m. In the rush to keep the power up, Akimov and Toptunov unknowingly drain the last bit of control they have left. Regulations demand a minimum number of control rods remain in the core. Effectively, the reactor's brakes. But the computer readout is flashing a warning. They're down to 18 rods, close enough to disaster that one wrong move could tip everything. Just minutes later, Akimov orders the activation of 2 additional main circulating pumps. More water equals more cooling, but the result is a nightmare. A massive surge of cold water into the core causes the steam pressure to plummet. Dyatlov demands the men bypass the automatic shutdown signals that are screaming because of the low water levels. The safety of the entire plant is now hanging by a thread. 20 minutes to 0 hour. The reactor desperately needs water. Too little and the core will overheat and bend out of shape. Too much and the water can surge into the turbines, shattering the blades. It's a fine balancing act. In the control room, alarms for low water blare. Senior control engineer Boris Stolyarchuk doesn't flinch. His eyes stay on the numbers. The plant is required to hit its annual output target. That is the job. That's what matters. 15 minutes to 0 hour. Inside the core, a terrifying chain reaction is beginning. With most of the control rods withdrawn, the bottom of the reactor has turned into a superheated zone. Temperatures climbing toward 1,300 degrees Fahrenheit. Steam bubbles begin to form in the cooling water. In most reactors, those bubbles would slow the reaction down. But in the Chernobyl reactor, they speed it up. It's a deadly design flaw the engineers were never told about, born from a cost-saving decision back in the 1960s. Energy is building at the base of the reactor, and the men in the control room have no idea. They are minutes away from crossing the point of no return. 5 minutes to 0 hour. The control room is a flurry of activity as they prepare to begin the test. Alexander Akimov and Leonid Toptunov work together, moving switches and turning dials. Actions that are quietly setting the stage for a nightmare. They have bypassed the emergency core cooling system and disabled the low-power protection locks. It's the only way to get the data Moscow demands. The men think they're in control. They are wrong. In the turbine hall, Sasha Yevchenko checks the machinery as he moves deeper into the building, straight toward disaster. High above him, Valery Perevoshenko, the foreman on duty, starts climbing the stairs toward the reactor hall. He has no idea what he is walking into. 1 minute to 0 hour. The test begins. The steam valves to turbine number 8 are shut. The massive machine starts to wind down. In the control room, the men stare at the dials. This is their narrow window, the moment they have been waiting for. They're counting on the turbine's momentum, hoping it can keep the cooling pumps alive until the diesel generators take over. As the pumps slow, the volume of water flowing through the reactor drops. The water that remains begins to boil violently. Steam bubbles form at the bottom of the core. Each bubble is a tiny pocket of disaster. The reactor is now trapped in a lethal feedback loop. More steam means more reactivity. More reactivity means more heat. More heat means even more steam. In the control room, instruments begin to flicker with news the operators don't want to see. The numbers on the screen start to climb faster and faster, and then they shoot upwards. 20 seconds to 0 hour. Akimov sees the jump. The power is climbing too fast, surging past the safety limits. He doesn't panic, his training kicks in. The AZ-5 button is hit. The reactor emergency protection system activates. It's the emergency shutdown, the scram command. It's supposed to end the test and stop the reactor cold, but tonight it does the opposite. As the rods begin to drop, the graphite tips hit the core first, and graphite doesn't slow the reaction down, it accelerates it. For a split second, the AZ-5 button acts as a kickstarter. The reactor's power output explodes past anything the building was ever meant to handle. In the reactor hall, Valery Perevoshenko stares at the massive steel lid meant to keep the reactor sealed shut. And then he sees it. The fuel caps are moving. A roar comes from the reactor. Valery doesn't wait to understand it. He runs. 0 hour. The control room is rocked by a massive explosion. Men are thrown off their feet. Dust falls from the ceiling as the building groans. Before anyone can move, a second explosion tears through the plant. It's equivalent to a 10-ton TNT detonation. The force is so violent it rips the roof clean off of the building, launching it nearly 100 feet into the air before it crashes back down into the open mouth of the core. The control room is suddenly filled with white dust and the scream of escaping steam. Ceiling panels collapse, raining heavy debris down on the men. A strange metallic taste floods their mouth as radiation tears through the air. 6 tons of nuclear fuel has just been blasted into the night sky. 1 minute after 0 hour. Flashlight beams cut through the thick dust in the control room. Alexander Akimov forces himself to believe the reactor is still intact, that the explosion was just a minor gas blast, not the core. He stares at his gauges, but they're dead. The needles are frozen at the highest point or stuck at 0. A worker bursts in from the turbine hall. There's a fire. Akimov alerts the fire station and the chiefs of the other departments, initiating emergency protocols to stabilize the plant. It's now a race against time. 5 minutes after 0 hour. Dyatlov is the first to stumble into the hallway, unable to comprehend the devastation in front of him. Pieces of the core lie scattered on the ground, glowing in the dark. In the control room, Akimov tries the internal phones. Nothing. The lines are dead. He has to send men physically to make contact in the plant. A soot-covered Sasha Yevchenko finds Dyatlov and blurts out that the roof is gone. Dyatlov ignores him, barking in order to get to the cooling pumps. Akimov sends junior engineers to the manual rod controls. He refuses to accept that the reactor is gone. The men step into a labyrinth of pitch-black corridors where the air is a thick metallic soup of scalding steam and radioactive dust. They wade through knee-deep water and climb over massive twisted steel beams. When they reach the reactor hall, the enormity finally hits them. The roof is gone. Above them, the night sky is clear, filled with stars. And rising from the shattered reactor is a shimmering pillar of violet blue light. The first firemen arrive at the plant. They have no radiation suits, only canvas coats, gloves, and helmets. In front of them lies black gravel scattered across the ground, and they start to kick it aside without a second thought. They believe they're walking into a normal rooftop fire. None of them realize it yet, but they are already dying. 10 minutes after 0 hour. Inside the control room, Akimov is still ordering water to be pumped into the reactor that has been torn apart. He and Toltunov stay at their posts, breathing in radioactive dust, unaware their skin is already beginning to blister and darken. The physical signs of radiation sickness begin to hit. Operators start to vomit uncontrollably. Their heads throb, the pressure building inside of their skulls. Dyatlov still refuses to accept the truth and wanders the plant, stepping over pieces of the core that have been blasted out of the building. Akimov starts calling for feed water pumps, trying to force water into a system that is dead. Someone notices the hydrogen problem. Procedures start, venting, clearing, anything to stop a second disaster. 1 mile away, the people of Pripyat are woken by the sound of sirens. From their balconies, they watch a rainbow of colors dancing over Reactor 4. Blues, greens, and purples, mesmerized by the strange beauty of it all. They don't realize that invisible, deadly dust is already drifting down onto their streets. 20 minutes after 0 hour. In the control room, Akimov calls his superiors. He tells them the reactor is intact. That one lie will keep 50,000 people trapped in the danger zone for more than a day. The engineers in that room are already doomed. Akimov and Toptunov keep fighting, desperately trying to pump water into the core, unaware that the pipes are ruptured in several places. The water never reaches the reactor. It floods the lower levels of the plant instead, turning everything it touches radioactive. Anatoly Dyatlov rushes into the turbine hall and finally sees the damage for himself. Chunks of graphite are scattered across the floor like black gravel, each block emitting lethal radiation. He returns to the control room and writes in the logbook that the reactor is still in one piece. Akimov realizes the truth. He looks through a broken wall at the smoke rising from the giant hole in the building. He turns to Toptunov with a look of pure horror. Quietly, he says that they did everything right. He looks down at his hands, and in that moment he knows they aren't going home. 60 minutes after 0 hour. The fires and emergency lights reveal the full scale of the mess. The reactor building is a hollow, twisted shell of metal and smoke. The men in the control room are now so sick they can barely stand. They are carried out by doctors who don't have the right gear to protect themselves. Sasha Yevchenko, still on site, helps to carry a coworker whose legs have given out. The air tastes like blood now, metallic and thick. Beneath them, the reactor's remains bubble and hiss, a pool of melted fuel chewing through concrete. Hour 2. 2 miles away, plant director Viktor Bryukhanov has been jolted awake. When he reaches the plant, he can't believe his eyes. From a deep underground safety room, Bryukhanov reads reports that make no sense, numbers that shouldn't be possible. He listens to Dyatlov's hurried account, still denying the core's destruction. It can't be true. Bryukhanov orders workers to check the radiation, but the tools they have aren't strong enough to measure levels that high. When the needles hit their highest mark, he dismisses the machines as faulty. Deputy Chief Engineer Nikolai Fomin joins Bryukhanov in the bunker, looking over the blueprints and schematics. They order more water to be pumped in, hoping that it'll put out the hidden fire. In a call to Moscow, Bryukhanov describes it as a small accident. He promises the fire is being contained and the reactor is safe. Meanwhile, Dyatlov is still arguing with engineers over the readings. Eventually, Dyatlov admits it, at least to himself. It's too late. Outwardly, he just barks orders, his voice cracking. Akimov and Toptunov are moved out by ambulance, their bodies shaking with pain. On the way out, Akimov whispers instructions to the driver, still trying to save a reactor that is already gone. As the sun rises, a massive cloud of smoke and radioactive debris looms over the plant, rising nearly 3 miles into the sky. 6 hours after 0 hour. Helicopters drop bags of sand and clay, pilots risking their lives with every pass. The core's heat melts the materials into a glassy mess, but it buys time. The first cleanup workers arrive with tools, unaware that they have just stepped into a deadly mission. Pripyat is quietly coated with radioactive dust. Children play in it as it drifts down from the sky. Mothers hang laundry outside, and the fabric soaks up radiation. Schools open like normal. Radiation spreads outward, settling over the nearby villages. 12 hours after 0 hour. The sky turns yellow with smoke. More helicopters join the emergency response, dropping chemicals in a desperate attempt to smother the radiation. Plant director Viktor Bryukhanov signs orders to move people out, but delays keep the warning from spreading. Officials fear panic more than the poison. Satellites spot the fire, alerting the West to what's happening. Hour 24. The fires are mostly out, but the core is still simmering underground. Buses roll into Pripyat and loudspeakers announce the evacuation. People are told they'll only be gone for 3 days. Residents pack in minutes, leaving meals on the table, toys on the floor, and doors unlocked. They will never return home. Hour 48. The area surrounding Chernobyl becomes a ghost town under military control. Robots are sent in and they fail within minutes, fried by the radiation. So men in heavy lead suits take their place, working only a few minutes at a time before they have to leave. Beneath the ruined reactor, teams tunnel through the earth and pour concrete, trying to stop the melted core from reaching the groundwater. In the hospitals, the worst stage of the sickness begins. Skin peels away, organs start to fail. 600 miles away in Sweden, a nuclear power plant detects a sudden spike. The wind is already carrying Chernobyl's fallout across Europe. 72 hours after 0 hour. A short update on national TV admits there's been an accident at Chernobyl and claims everything is under control. Above the plant, helicopters fly overhead day and night, dropping more sand and boron, their instruments screaming from the exposure. 10 days after 0 hour. The fires die out on May 6th. Helicopters have dumped more than 5,500 tons of sand, clay, and lead, forming a hard crust over the smoking core. Emissions drop, but small leaks continue seeping into the soil. Cleanup workers continue to be on site, working for a few minutes at a time to stay alive. Alexander Akimov died 15 days after the blast, his body covered in blisters as his organs failed. Leonid Toptunov followed 3 days after that. Anatoly Dyatlov survived the initial blast but lived with radiation sickness for the rest of his life. He was sentenced to 10 years in a labor camp for his role in the disaster. He died in 1995, still blaming the Soviet design, not his own decisions. The immediate death toll was 31. Long-term estimates range from 4,000 to 9,000 cancer deaths, but the damage itself will last for millennia. Now go check out Sasha Yevchenko's incredible story, How I Survived Chernobyl, or click on this video instead.